What is up? Welcome back to the Red Shirts Fantasy Football Podcast. Okada is doing some sort of weird intro dance, I think.
I'm dabbing on the haters. What do you mean some sort of intro
Here is it, Okada.
Is that a dab? I don't think that's what a dab is, dude. Cam Newton did that for like every touchdown he scored like 2 years ago, and that was not it.
Okay, Cam Newton's version of the dab is different.
His is cooler than yours. Let's be honest.
Okay.
If you're not watching on YouTube, you're doing it wrong. That is the place. If you can bear to see our faces, that's the place to do it. Of course, Okada is rocking a tank top on this fine Tuesday evening. John, of course, is rocking the backwards hat. It's what you guys come to love about the Red Shirts Fantasy Football Podcast. We are back. This is, what is this, episode 136, 137? I don't even know anymore, man. It just feels like we've done so many shows. But just like all our other ones, this one is going to be absolutely fantastic. We have got a Dynasty themed show for you guys tonight. Before we get into the content, though, let's check in with the other two on the show. Okada, John, what's going on, fellas? How we doing?
Diddly squat is going on, Bets. It is the middle of May with no sports, no going outside, and working from home all day. That is it.
Same. Yep. That's about the extent of it. Although it is fun hearing that states are working on opening back up to professional sports, and that might potentially be coming. That's pretty exciting. But yeah, it's just it's kind of the dead period right now. Post NFL draft, no OTAs happening, no rookie mini camps. So we're just kind of waiting. We're just kind of formulating and doing way too many startups. And
if your name is John,
if your name is me, I did a lot. I'm still doing a lot. I have a problem.
I'm going to literally own every single player in the NFL by the time this offseason is over.
Yeah, that's a nice goal. It's a nice goal to own the top 150 players in fantasy football across all platforms. I might do that. I might see if I can make that happen. That'd be fun.
So real quick on that, like that note. So when I first started playing fantasy, I would get so invested in like my one or two teams and like who I owned, which player I had. Like I would root for that player so hard on Sundays. Now that I'm in like, I don't even know, 7, 8, 9 leagues, something like that, plus a few redraft, like you own way too many people to even like know who to root for versus who to root against. Does that make your Sunday more relaxing as a fantasy player? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'm past the point where I'm like, okay, I need Matthew Stafford to throw for 302, and I need Aaron Rodgers to not throw more than 250 and to like you're beyond that point, because if I got someone in this league, I'm probably playing him in another one, and I can just kind of watch football and enjoy it and then watch the scores later and see what happened.
See, I completely disagree. I feel like the difficulty that happens with those when you start adding a few more leagues gets amplified when you have 10 leagues, because now you are almost certainly facing the same guy that you need to score points.
Absolutely.
So no matter what happens, you lose somewhere.
Well, such as sports. Not everyone can win, Okada.
True.
Yeah. Well, hey, the way to get around that is to play some DFS. I did that last year a ton.
True.
And
also true.
I was way more invested in that than like my redraft leagues or like my dynasty league, unless it was the playoffs or something like that. But I think it makes the Sunday way more exciting. And speaking of DFS, some exciting news coming to Red Shirts Fantasy Football and to Patreon. We have new tiers up on patreon.com/redshirtspod, new as of yesterday on Tuesday. So check those out. We have some DFS content coming from yours truly. Last year, I did very well in player props betting. We will have that up on the site for our Patreon supporters, and draft essentials come like between the three of us. So we're going to tell you, players that we're targeting each round based off ADP. We're going to look at our top overall consensus rankings. We got so much more coming for you guys on Patreon for the subscribers. And by the way, guys, is there a better Slack channel or like fantasy football community than what we have? It is so freaking fun. The guys we have, they are, I don't even think they work. Like people are just in there all day talking fantasy. So if you want to be a part of that, and I encourage you to check that out, please go to patreon.com/redshirtspod and join. You will not be disappointed. Last quick bit of note here before we get into the news. Fellas, Devontae Adams, he signed a jersey and we bought it. So we're giving it away, literally for free, giving it away. The rules to enter are on the pinned tweet on our Twitter page, as well as on our Instagram page. Check those out at RedShirtsFFPod. All right, boys, that is enough of me rambling. Why don't you say we get into some news?
Sure.
I got great news, guys. Oh, hey, news.
All right, so we were giving John a hard time. Of course, he's the Jonathan Taylor enthusiast on the site and on the pod.
Yes.
There was a quote that came out from Coach Frank Reich of the Colts saying, quote, "It wouldn't surprise me if there's a game this season that Nyheim Hines has 10 catches." He went on to say, "Phillip Rivers has an uncanny ability to get the ball to the backs. Nyheim will be very much integrated into the game plan on all 3 downs.
Ooh.
Still enough snaps for him to be very, very productive this year. Very productive." End quote.
Oh.
Okada, were you counting? How many varies was that?
I was counting. There were 4 in that quote.
He is all about this Nyheim Hines. Guys, what do we do with it in fantasy? Because everyone is assuming he's not really part of the backfield, right? It's Jonathan Taylor. Everyone's talking about Marlon Mack. Like, is Nyheim Hines going to be a PPR asset in fantasy this year? And if so, are we sleeping on him as a fantasy community?
I think he is. Last year, I was a big fan, as some of you may remember. He was effective, honestly. And Marlon Mack is not going to slide down to the Nyheim Hines role. This is not like a 1-2-3 where Mack was in the 1 and Hines is in the 2, and now that Taylor's in the 1, they're each going to move down a peg. That's not the way it's going to work because Mack doesn't do what Hines does, and for that matter, neither does Taylor certainly to the degree that Hines does. Hines is a James White type pass catching talent, and he will be there. If he's not in the backfield on 3rd down, he may be split out in the slot. He may be in the backfield with Jonathan Taylor. He may get in there on 2nd down and longs. I think he will be used very, very often, enough to make him fantasy relevant in PPR leagues. If you're not playing in PPR, no thank you. Yep. But if he can get 50-plus catches in a PPR league, it hardly matters what else he does. That will be productive enough to be relevant.
Yeah. I never assumed that he wasn't going to be in the picture. We know that Jonathan Taylor's pass catching prowess is not on an elite level. I think he's fine. I think that he's serviceable. He will get his opportunities. But yeah, Nyheim Hines is, just like Okada said, the James White, Tariq Cohen kind of running back, where in PPR, he might finish inside the top 24. In standard, he might be 48.
Yeah.
Like it could be that bad, but he's going to get work in the passing downs. And to me, it's more or less that he's like their 3rd receiving option, not that he's like their running back option. To me, it kind of looks like Marlon Mack might be the one that's a little bit odd man out. Like, you've got Jonathan Taylor that you just invested a ton of capital in, moved up to get him in the 2nd round. He and Mack are surely going to split carries early. Absolutely. I think that happens. Jonathan Taylor is not just walking in to 20 carries a game right off the bat. He will take it over at some point, but Mack's going to be there early in the season. Nyheim Hines is going to be a PPR machine. Eventually, Jonathan Taylor is going to be doing a much more amount of the heavy lifting. Hines is still going to be involved in the passing game, and Marlon Mack is going to become the really inexpensive backup to Jonathan Taylor because he's only costing like $2 million, I think it is, against the cap this year. Very inexpensive. So, yeah, I think Nyheim Hines could definitely be worth a late round pick as a PPR option, where, just like what we've talked about in the past with Tariq Cohen, he might get 5, 6, 8 catches in a game, and that PPR value alone makes him a flex play.
Yeah, it's unreal what receptions do in PPR formats to elevate a player's fantasy stock. You catch 1 pass for -2 yards and you still get fantasy points.
Right.
In standard or half PPR, you're losing points when that happens. So Yeah, it's unreal what that does. I mean, let's set an over-under line, guys. I'm a degenerate gambler. 61.5 receptions this year. What do you guys think? Over, under Nyheim Hines?
Ooh,
And that number just like felt right. I don't know why, it just felt right.
Well, I was just looking at his catches, and that's just under the mark from his rookie season, which is 63, and a little above his mark from last season, which is 44. So I think it's a decent line.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think 61.5. I'm gonna take the under because I think it's right under that. I think it's like 57 to 60 would have been my ballpark. So technically, I'm gonna take the under, but by so little that it hardly matters. It's a lot of catches.
I was in a conversation today, shocking, in a startup, new and different for me, talking with some people about this very thing because I took Jonathan Taylor early, like I've been doing all over the place. And they were like, that's going to be so great for your team when he doesn't catch anything. I'm like, it's Phillip Rivers. He's going to panic and dump the ball off to his running back a lot. I told them in the channel, I was like, I still think Hines is going to get 60 catches. So when you said 61.5, I'm like, okay, we're pretty much on the same wavelength there. I think he's going to be right around that ballpark, 55 to 65, somewhere right in that window. I still think that there's enough to go around where Jonathan Taylor could still catch anywhere from 25 to upwards of 35 on checkdowns out of the backfield. So I think that there's going to be plenty of receiving work available for the running backs in this offense with Phillip Rivers. And I think they're going to prioritize getting the ball to their backs in space. I think that's going to be kind of the calling card of that offense.
Yeah, I agree. I lean slightly over. I mean, look at the wide receiver depth chart, right? It's T.Y. Hilton, and then it's a whole bunch of question marks. I mean, Paris Campbell is exciting, but we don't know what he really is in the NFL. Zach Pascal, I think, profiles more as a team's wide receiver 3-4 type of player. Michael Pittman Jr., we like a lot, but what is he going to be this year? We don't know, especially in a year where the offseason program is just fluky and it's different. I think Nyheim Hines is going to return some value this year as like a flex play on any given week. So I'm in on Nyheim Hines this year as a sneaky play. The next piece of news here that we're going to talk about is injury related. So fellas, it's May. It's like the season of hype when injuries come out. Every player is in the best shape of their life. Their workout program is going great. They're doing all sorts of cool Instagram workouts. Here's the truth. All right, guys. Big Ben was seen throwing a football and, might I say, looking very good doing so because he does not have his beard anymore. And it turns out everyone was giving him a hard time. He told whoever was taking the video that he posted on social media, he wasn't going to shave his beard until he could throw a football the correct way. And they said, what do you mean? Like throw it to like your kid or what do you mean? He said, no, like throw it like I'm playing in the NFL, like a real NFL pass. And he's here without a beard and throwing the football to Juju. Now, before I speak on the injury side of things, I just want to know, like, what was your guys' initial reaction to that? Like, hyped about Juju, hyped about Ben, excited for the Steelers. What's your temperature before I talk about it?
I would like to choose D, all of the above, because
perfect.
That video was so hype. First of all, Big Ben looking pretty good after he got that trim. Yeah. Like, I think that maybe he was trying to trade for himself in a Dynasty league this whole offseason. And so he was giving off this. He figured out the look that made him look the fattest and most unathletic. But in reality, underneath, he was actually pretty svelte. So he looks like he's fine. He looks like he'll be ready to go. Juju, I'm excited about Big Ben coming back because he's going to have a legitimate NFL quarterback instead of the doo-doo carousel that he dealt with last year. The whole offense is going to get better because of that same reason. It's all signs pointing up, in my opinion, which sounds like an overreaction, but I don't think it is.
I'm here to throw a little bit of cold water on it because, okay, he's in gym shorts and throwing a pass on a practice field to his number one wide receiver. It was like a 15-yard slant. Like, he threw the ball. Congratulations. I'm really happy for you that you're on your way back. That is great for you as an individual and for the Steelers as a franchise. But didn't we all expect him to be doing this? Like, this isn't new information. This is, everyone's been saying we expect Ben to be coming back for the season. That's what I've been hearing.
I don't think so. Everybody's been saying no.
Kind of shaking his head.
Yeah,
no.
I started shaking my head when he said that because that's the whole thing. Everybody's been saying, Oh my gosh, what has happened to Big Ben? He has fallen off the truck and is bouncing along the ground, and away go the Steelers into the sunset.
I thought that he looked really how should I say,
Horrific?
chunky,
Terrifying.
Chunky.
Grizzly Adams.
Grizzly Adams, yes.
Like, yes, he's looked that way with that grody freaking beard. Just so bad, dude. So bad. I can't believe he's married and that someone actually let him do that.
I'm sure they weren't happy about it.
But no, they were not. But I still thought that he was gonna be coming back. Like, I still thought he was gonna be. That's how everyone's been treating all of the Steelers players in drafts. Is that there's no quarterback question going into next season. That's why Juju's going early. That's why Deontay Johnson has all this hype. That's why you're even seeing some late round James Washington flyers, because everyone thought that Ben's coming back. To me, this doesn't change anything about the situation. Everyone being like, he's back. Yes, Juju, Dynasty wide receiver 1. It's like, chill out, man. Like, he's going to be coming back.
Dynasty wide receiver 1.
Yeah, shut up. No, he's not.
That hasn't changed.
No, he's not.
We go, Mets.
No, he's not. But I just don't think that this changes anything for me. It's nothing different. We expected him to be coming back. I still have concerns about Juju operating as a true wide receiver 1. Granted, he's still ridiculously young, and I give him that. So you still draft for that upside and for what he showed early in his career. But to me, I'm just like, okay, congratulations. You were on a practice field and you threw a slant to an NFL wide receiver. Great. Okay.
Yes. So here's my take on the situation, guys. This could not be further from a question mark.
Yes.
This is why you tune into the podcast, right? Inside information on injuries, and I just tell you it's a complete question mark. But here's the reality. Big Ben tore the ulnar collateral ligament on the inside of his elbow, which basically sits, if you're watching on YouTube, is kind of in this region right here. It's the injury that everyone has when they have Tommy John surgery. Baseball pitchers, everyone knows that. Huge injury, huge recovery. Some players in baseball never make it back on a field because of this injury. So it's not great from a prognosis standpoint. But for Big Ben, they didn't do Tommy John surgery. There's reports out there saying that he had 3 tendons reattached in his elbow. And I'm kind of reading the tea leaves and saying it wasn't that. It wasn't Tommy John. They probably did the new procedure that's out there. And this is new in the last couple of years, where basically they repair the ligament and then they kind of give it like an external support, so to speak. And it's super complicated. And, feel free to hit me up in Slack, patrons, or on Twitter if you want more questions. But basically, it's a new procedure. It heals really reliably and really fast. And that's why we're seeing Big Ben throw. But we have no idea how it does long term. So you could tell me in 2 years that he's out of the league and has never thrown a football again in his life, or you could tell me that he would be playing for another 3 years and totally fine. And I would say both are probably correct, because we have no idea how it performs. And it's just a disadvantage of new procedures in medicine. We don't know how he's going to do. I will say, from a recovery standpoint, baseball pitchers, because of the motion that they have, the torque on the elbow, the velocity, how many pitches they throw in a season, the risk is much, much greater compared to an NFL quarterback who's throwing, on the high side 30 times a game, probably sitting out practice if you're Big Ben, because he's 38 years old. So it is a complete question mark, and it is fascinating to see what's going to happen this year with Big Ben. I think they chose to do that procedure because they know this is it. Like, why give this guy a huge recovery if you can get him back on the field faster and potentially have the same risk? So Juju is going to be fascinating. The entire offense is going to be fascinating. But I'll tell you what, guys, if Juju is operating as the team's 1 in the slot with Big Ben, I am all in on that this season, considering the fact that when you look at the team plays, how many they ran last year, second to last in the entire NFL. They couldn't move the ball at all with Mason Rudolph or Duck Hodges. Year before, 4th most plays in the NFL. So I'm betting on volume, and I'm betting on Juju in the slot. And I think Big Ben can hold up just enough this year to get him the ball. So that's my take on the situation. Sorry for being long-winded. Feel free to ask more questions about that in Slack. Guys, next piece of news, the Footwork King. And if you're not familiar, listeners, the Footwork King is a hype man, a trainer. I don't even know what he is. I think he's a trainer, like an agility specialist. He posts all these workouts, these NFL players, usually in the offseason, doing their conditioning work. He showed Jerick McKinnon working out just 2 weeks after we saw a report that said he wasn't even cutting yet, 2 years removed from his ACL injury. I'm gonna do the same thing I did with Ben, guys. I'm gonna get your first take, your initial reaction, and then I'm gonna talk about it from an injury perspective. So go ahead. What do you think?
Oh, this one I don't want to talk about as immediately because I can't evaluate cutting of knees on a field as well as I can evaluate cutting of beard hairs on a Steelers quarterback. But
hashtag analysis.
Yes, but also because I don't know, even if Jerick McKinnon is healthy, what to expect at all whatsoever if he comes back 100% for the 49ers. Because Kyle Shanahan does what he wants with those running backs, which is it's a hot hand thing. He knows who to game plan against a specific team. Who even knows how he figures it out? But he picks the guy that he thinks will work. This even switched within the playoffs when both guys were doing well between Coleman and Mostert, back and forth. I think McKinnon has the ability, if 100% healthy, to be the most talented running back on that team. I will say that. I think he can be the best pass catcher, and I think overall he could be the most talented running back on that team. Having said that, I have no expectations that he's going to be an RB1 anytime soon. I don't think he's going to get 200 carries anytime soon. So this is the kind of situation where you have to hope that he's the hot hand more often than not and has PPR value playing on third downs, even if he's not the lead guy. I'm willing to take a flyer on him, and I'm willing to trade for him in Dynasty, considering how low the price should be, which is like nothing, peanuts. But my expectations are limited.
Would you give a third for him
this year?
Yeah, let's say you haven't had your rookie draft yet.
I think I would give a mid to late third. I think in the early third, there's still some guys I probably want before him. But if you told me a mid to late third, I might do it.
All right.
John, I think that would get it done too. Sorry, John.
That would totally get it done. I'm willing to take a chance on Raheem Mostert based on what he did down the stretch and in the playoffs and earned the trust in the Super Bowl and showed out. I think that of all the running backs in that backfield, Mostert has the early advantage, leg up to be the guy that's going to get the most carries early. And I think that he might do a good job of carving out a solid role, like maybe 12 carries a game or something along that line. I think that could potentially happen. The rest of that backfield, I don't want to touch because of everything that Okada was just saying about Shanahan. It's like the new Bellatrix. Like, you just have no idea what's going to take place in that backfield because he doesn't care. He doesn't care who's back there at all. He doesn't have a belt cow guy that he's like, well, I'm committed to this dude and getting him 18.5 carries per game on the course of the season. He just doesn't care. The scheme works for basically whoever's back there, or maybe just slightly tweaked to the skill set of the individual player going against that opponent that week. I don't want anything to do with the San Francisco backfield, except for maybe Mostert, who might just have the early advantage on being the lead guy. But this lead guy is not a bell cow back by any means at all. The lead running back in that system, I don't think gets 200 carries on the year.
Yeah, I agree. It's so tricky to predict week to week. I will say in this offense, I want the pass catching running back, and I believe Okada, you and I last year and even the year before, we talked about McKinnon in that role. So I'm intrigued to see how he fits in with the offense, because we give him like 75 carries. Who cares? I want to see him catch the football, and that's where he would be effective. Now, let's break down the injury, because he's a guy that it's been so tough and it's so unfortunate. Tore the ACL in his right knee in 2018 in training camp. Missed the entire season, obviously, having surgery. Comes back. He's in training camp last year. It just didn't go right. Something went wrong with his rehab. Suffered a setback. Now, every report that I've read says his ACL is still intact. Things are okay there. Meniscus looks good, but he required a secondary procedure. Typically, what that means is either there's a small cartilage piece, basically, that kind of is irritating the joint, and so they have to go in and take it out, or they have what's called a cleanup procedure, because there's too much scar tissue that kind of develops in the joint and creates stiffness, pain, you move funny. It just changes the way your mechanics work. So one of those two things probably happened. Again, they shut him down for the season. So we haven't seen Jerick McKinnon on a football field since 2017. It's been a while. So who knows what he's going to be this year? But let's break down the injury because the cutting video I think is really important to watch. We're going to try to get it here up on the screen for you guys on YouTube. So if you're not watching on YouTube, check that out for sure. We'll see if I can screw up the technology here. One sec. So we'll remove the overlay. We're going to bring this guy on. Here we go.
Hey, beautiful.
So here's what I want you guys to watch for it. And you'll see it's his right knee, right? So you'll see him when he's moving, when he puts his foot in the ground on the left leg, it's very different than when he puts his foot on the ground on the right. So watch this here. He's going to run a slant, boom, sticks his foot in the ground and goes. Watch now on these next couple of clips here. He's going to move off the right. That's a rounded route. He doesn't push off on the right, the right leg as much. And I think you see it more in the very, very first clip, which I think is going to show here in a second, right after this slant right here. It's just not what I want to see out of a running back 2 years out of ACL. You want to be able to see those guys looking like they're moving with symmetry. And, you know, even I, like as a physical therapist, 2 years out, you should be able to look at someone and say, I don't even know which knee it was, but you can tell like that's rounded and boom, right off the left leg. So it's just different. I think he's a ways away, unfortunately. And I think honestly, I think it's going to be a little bit before we see him potentially have a role in this offense. So I'm excited to see if he can be something, but I'm certainly not counting on it by any means.
Which is kind of what you say about a late third-round rookie pick. Yeah,
maybe. Yeah, well, I say with this news, I would say if there's an owner that's hyped and they're like, "Oh, sweet, did you see that video of McKinnon?" Dangle a second rounder out there, like a 2021 second. Dangle it out there, and I would smash that if I could. Wow. So, yeah, for sure.
I will say, in closing, that I might be biased because I have a dynasty team, which Betts is in that league, that is so bad. It is so bad that my starting running backs in my lineup right now are Sony Michel and Jerick McKinnon.
What could go wrong this year?
So, enjoy Justin Fields next year.
Indeed, that's my goal.
Well,
have fun with that.
Well, hey, that is the correct way to tank. If you're going to tank, you got to go all in, and you got to rebuild. You got to do it. You have to suck for 2 years. You just have to. But that's not the theme of the show. We are talking about going for the win, going for the ship, going for the title. And to do that, again, you have to go all in. So we're going to talk about some players tonight that we are recommending. Go all in, get these guys on your roster to help you win now and make that move to put you over the top. Because I'll tell you what, guys, even though Kata likes losing in Dynasty, I prefer to win personally. Okay. So, all right, fellas, we're going to go around the clock here. Let's kick it over to John first. John, who is your first buy for Dynasty contenders?
So if I am a Dynasty team that is, you know, right there looking like one of the top 4 teams in the league, the position that I want to shore up the most is running back. That's the position where I want studs that are going to produce right now. I'm not really looking a couple years down the road. We're all in for a championship right now this year. I'm going to go for a running back that has his veteran future Hall of Fame, high accuracy quarterback coming back probably for one more season. I'm going with Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara is coming off a year where he missed a couple games. His numbers across the board were down a little bit, although he was still a PPR monster with 81 receptions in 14 games. But we all know he only had those 5 touchdowns on the year, and he went like, I'm forgetting the number offhand, 9 weeks, something like that, without a touchdown. It was like 2.5 months, 9 or 10 weeks, something like that, in the middle of the season where he didn't score. With all of the work he gets, with the amount of receptions that he gets, it is the flukiest thing ever that he did not have like his normal double-digit touchdown total that he gets year in and year out so far in the NFL. This is the last year where I feel really, really confident with Alvin Kamara because, one, he's in a contract year. Next year, he's going to need a contract. They're either going to re-sign him or I don't know if they're tearing it down after Drew Brees walks away. So I don't know what's going to happen there with Alvin Kamara. And this is the last year, most likely, of Drew Brees being in town. But if I'm all in right now for a championship, I will take this guy who, like I said, had 81 receptions in 14 games. You put that over 16 games, you're in the 90s. You know, could potentially flirt with 100 receptions. This dude is a PPR machine. He should be right back to his ways of scoring touchdowns, and he should absolutely be considered as probably a top 5 dynasty running back. But because of the numbers that he had last year, because of the down totals, because of the future potential outlook, you might be able to go get this dude at a little bit of a discount. And that's why he's on this list for me, is because the owner that has him, if that person is not in contention right now, they might be looking to sell off the running back that they could potentially see a cliff coming shortly for. So you might be able to go out and get this dude way less than you would have had to pay for him last year.
Yeah, I think that kind of what you said there at the end is the key with Kamara, which is, this is like, usually when we talk about this question and we try to answer this question, a lot of the names that are going to come up are going to be old guys who are going to, they're going to retire from the league in a couple years, let alone maybe hit a cliff in a year. Kamara's not that at all. He's very young.
He's only 24.
Yeah, he's old, 3 years in the league. So he's got, a few years left at least of good production.
Yeah.
So it seems weird, but if you can buy him on the dip of those touchdowns, to your point, that is what makes it worth it. And the other thing is, if you're a team that's contending, you are probably more willing to offer first-round picks to get somebody. So with a lot of these other guys we'll talk about, you don't have to offer a first-round pick. With Kamara, you're going to have to offer more than a first-round pick, probably. Yeah. More even than a high first-round pick. Probably. But as a contending team, you're probably more willing to do that because you're going for right now. You don't need that rookie right now. You just want to win a dang championship. So I kind of like it, and I do see him as a bounce back.
Yeah, I agree. I think if there was ever a year to bet on Alvin Kamara, I think it's this year to be what he was a couple years ago. And the reason I say that is just because Drew Brees is 1 year older. Yes, he is still producing at a high level, but make it simple for the guy. Give him the running back out of the backfield. Alvin Kamara is, what, top 2 pass-catching running backs in the league?
Yeah,
top
behind
3, maybe?
CMC.
I don't know.
I don't know that there's anyone better besides CMC at being a pass.
And I will say, John, you mentioned like maybe someone sees a cliff coming. I don't see it with Kamara, man. These pass catching backs tend to last longer in the NFL than these typical, carry the ball 25 times up the middle type backs. So you might be able to talk to an owner in your league and say, hey man, look, like Brees is going to be gone soon. I'm in it for this year. I know you're trying to rebuild, but like, let me get Kamara for this season. Like, I'll give you a couple first. What do you think? Meanwhile, you're getting Kamara for this year and next year. So yeah, I would do that for sure. Like you said, super young. He's the most expensive player on our list that we're going to talk about tonight, but yeah, you can't argue with that production with Alvin Kamara. I like that a lot. All right, Okada, back to you, man. Hit us with your first player to trade for if you're a contender.
All righty. I am going the other route, the aged, undervalued veteran route, and it is going to be a wide receiver who has been undervalued for years now, but especially right now feels I don't understand the disrespect. It's Marvin Jones of the Detroit Lions, 30-year-old wide receiver. Listen, he's missed some games over the past 2 years, and hopefully Betts can talk a little bit to that injury history and see if we expect it anymore. But when he's played, he has been extremely productive, both from a yards perspective and, more importantly, from a touchdown perspective. He's one of the most reliable scoring receivers in the league, honestly, especially on a per target basis. So over the last 3 seasons, if you take his per game numbers and you put them out over a whole season, 67 catches, 1,005 yards, 10 touchdowns would be his average in a 16-game season based on the last 3 years of production. That is disgusting, but it's also not out of the realm of possibility because it's what he does well. He catches deep balls well. He catches contested catches well, and he has a quarterback coming back in Matthew Stafford who throws those balls well. And so right now you're buying him coming off of 2 years of missing games. You're buying him off of last season when he played a lot of the games that he did play with worse quarterbacks than we just talked about with the Steelers and Juju, which is saying something.
Wow.
David Blau.
Who balled on Thanksgiving, by the way.
True. That is not false. And you're getting a guy who, on a per-game basis last year, even with Stafford not there, was the wide receiver 21 in the realm of Calvin Ridley, DJ Chark, and Jarvis Landry, all of who we're talking about rounds ahead of Marvin Jones. And yes, they're younger, mostly. Landry's not too much younger. But you can go out there and get Jones, I think, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, for a late second-round pick at this point.
Yeah. I think so.
John's hesitating. Betts agrees. Mid at the earliest, John.
Mid.
And
I would do it. I would smash
absolutely. If you're a contender, getting a guy who's, if he plays a full season, you're looking at 8 to 10 touchdowns potentially and 1,000 yards. Slap at the base.
Slap at the base.
Has Marvin Jones ever been valued correctly in his entire career in fantasy football?
No,
like he is the perfect, like it's just so easy, right? Like every year, fantasy football, your podcast gets ready. You're like, all right, it's spring. Like, who are we going to talk about buys? Oh, let's just talk about Marvin Jones this year.
Marvin Jones.
All right, it's August. Let's talk about sleepers and late round values. Who do you guys want to talk about? Marvin Jones. Why not? He is the perfect wide receiver 3 for your dynasty roster, and you can pay like wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5 prices for him. Going in the double-digit rounds of dynasty startups, I'm in, man. And you talked about the injury. I was actually messaging on Twitter with ESPN NFL Nation reporter Michael Rothstein. He's the Lions beat reporter for ESPN, because I'm writing up the blurbs for the Fantasy Footballers injury report for the draft kit. And I was like, man, there are no details about Marvin Jones. Like, what can you tell me? And that's not surprising, right? This is the Lions team that comes from the Patriots organization. They're very hush-hush about injuries. So guys like me that are trying to do some digging, I had no idea. So I chatted with him, and he said, basically, what I'm understanding is it was not a serious injury. There was no surgery performed. He said, outside of that, I can't really tell you too much. Now, based off the video, it happened in one of the last couple games of the season. He got his ankle rolled up on by another defender, probably a high ankle sprain type of variety. So with those, we're looking to see, does the player have surgery or not? It tells you the severity. And if he's not having surgery, it suggests that it's probably a low-grade injury. So with all of that being said, I'm going to treat Marvin Jones as if he's going to be healthy this year, unless I hear otherwise. And so, for that reason, I'm in on Marvin Jones, man. And it feels like every year he's just the perfect fantasy football value for your roster.
Betts, just go ahead and schedule the tweet now for April of 2021.
Yep.
Discount veteran wide receivers that you can buy cheap. Just schedule it now. That
would actually be hilarious.
You should.
Actually did that.
You should absolutely do it from the show account. Schedule it out for like next March or April, pre-draft. Yeah. Just put it out there. That passing attack in Detroit, and we've talked about it a little bit in recent shows, so I'm not going to harp on it too much, but it's probably the most underrated passing attack in the entire NFL right now. They were cooking last year before Stafford got hurt. He was on pace for like 5,000 yards, 33 touchdowns without the 30 interceptions that Jameis was going to throw. Like, he was Jameis Winston without all the picks last year. He was going to be a fantasy star. He was going to win you leagues, and he's still being criminally undervalued as well. But you're looking for a solid week in, week out wide receiver 2 on your roster, 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns. Marvin Jones is that guy, and he's opposite of Kenny Golladay, who continues to ball out and emerge. Galladay's going really high. I mean, I'm seeing him go in startups in like the third, probably the third, maybe 4th round. And Marvin Jones is going like literally 8 rounds later than that. It's criminal. It doesn't make any sense. Yes, Galladay's good, but the difference in production that they're going to put up does not warrant this massive gap between the two. So I completely agree. I think that's great. If I could throw a 2nd round pick to the guy that has him and add him to a contending roster, I'll do that all day long. And in fact, I think I'm going to go make some inquiries after the show.
Yeah, perfect. I'm going to talk about my player here next, guys, but I'm going to save this one because I want to follow it up right after Okada talks about his player. Ooh. Spoiler alert. They play for the same team. So my first dynasty buy is a guy everyone was on last year, right? They were like, dude, this guy's going to be running back 1. They run the ball a ton in Baltimore. I'm talking about Mark Ingram, man. He was the dude last year. And now they have J.K. Dobbins, and no one wants Mark Ingram. No one wants Mark Ingram.
Get him out of here.
And maybe that's for good reason, but I'm going to tell you why it's not. They ran the ball at an insane clip last year, the most in the entire NFL. And I'm not just talking about like a little bit more than the next best team, like 5 rush attempts more than the next best team, which was the Niners. Even if J.K. Dobbins comes in, I'm going to give him like 750, 800 rush yards this year. That's fine because you know what, guys? Gus freaking Edwards came in last year and ran for 711 yards. Crazy. Mark Ingram is going to be a back-end RB2 in fantasy this year.
Yep.
And you can get him for like a late second, like 3rd round rookie pick. Everyone is scared by J.K. Dobbins, and rightly so in Dynasty, right? Like, I'm telling you, if you're a Dynasty contender, this is a 1-year play. You're not going to take Mark Ingram to be the guy for 2 years. It's J.K. Dobbins' team in the future. But for 2020, Mark Ingram's not just going to be like, all right, J.K., like, here you go, man. This is your backfield. Mark Ingram's still going to touch the ball probably close to 200 times. And with how good that rush attack is, I'll take a back-end RB2 for 1 more year. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are about that, but I like it a lot. Obviously, you can tell I'm super excited about it.
Yeah, no, I like it, and I actually like it for another little reason that I think is probably going unheralded, which, you know, we can talk about J.K. Dobbins. We can say he's not going to be too much of an issue. But then the immediate response from everybody's going to be, but Lamar Jackson, he's going to run for 1,200 yards. Their RB1 is their quarterback. Listen, guys, Lamar Jackson just had the greatest rushing season by a quarterback in NFL history, maybe that will ever occur. That is probably not going to happen again. We talk about regression every year with all the different players. When Patrick Mahomes threw 50 touchdowns, we said he's not going to go throw 50 touchdowns again next year. Doesn't mean he's going to be bad, but he's not going to do it again. Lamar Jackson is not going to rush for 1,200 yards. He might still rush for 1,000, which would be insane. Insane.
1,000 yards for a quarterback back-to-back seasons? That'd be nuts.
That would be insane.
Yeah.
So if we're projecting, you know, he might even be less than that, in the high hundreds. Meanwhile, what is every team in the AFC North doing this offseason when they're
figuring out how to defend Lamar Jackson?
Yes, 100%. They are all sitting in their tape rooms and saying, how do we stop Lamar Jackson? Because we cannot win this division if he is running all over us. NFL teams are going to figure out how to counter the Lamar Jackson phenomenon to a degree. Is he still going to have 800 yards? Maybe. He's still going to be, you know, QB 1, 2, or 3 in fantasy? Probably. But those rushing yards are going to go from him to potentially somewhere else, such as a guy named Mark Ingram. So that was a bit of a tangent to talk about Lamar Jackson, but it comes back to the point of, I like it, Betts. Give me some Mark Ingram.
Yes, and it's warranted too, right? Like I agree. Like that's the pushback a lot of people will say is it's Lamar Jackson's backfield. I don't want Mark Ingram, but like you're saying, you just have to look at the odds and like what is the statistical relevance of like what is going to happen this year versus what happened last year. And like you said, regression is coming for Lamar, still a stud in fantasy, but will we see what we saw last year? Probably not. All right, boys, before we move on to the next player, I want to pause real quick. Thank the sponsor of today's show. That is FFPC. Guys, we're talking Dynasty. Dynasty is great. If you're not playing Dynasty, you're doing it wrong, man. Dynasty is the best type of fantasy football, in my opinion. I love it.
Agree.
And there's no better place to play than FFPC, the Fantasy Football Players Championship. They have high stakes leagues. They've got leagues that are, you know, reasonably priced. But guys, you can win so much money on FFPC playing with really, really good, players who know what they're doing, and that just makes the league more fun, in my opinion. You know, there's a couple owners here or there in my leagues that just like don't really know what's happening, and yeah, it's nice because you can win against them, but like I want to play against people who know what they're doing. You know that you're going to get a good matchup every week. FFPC is the place to go if you're serious about fantasy football. The link is redshirtsfantasyfootball.com/FFPC. Check them out. Dynasty leagues, guys, this is crazy. They have literally never had a league that had to fold because they always find owners to step right in and take over. So if you're looking for a league that you can rely and trust, that is the place to do it. redshirtsfantasyfootball.com/FFPC. All right, boys, round 2 here of our buys for contenders. John, kick it back to you, man. Who you got?
Yeah, I'm going to go with a wide receiver that has been very stable, very consistent, who is losing some luster in the eyes of fantasy owners everywhere because of a second-year wide receiver that everyone loves, including myself, very high on. But I'm talking about Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett is a great asset, a great deep ball wide receiver. His passer rating when targeted by Russell Wilson was perfect, I think. Isn't that the number? Perfect 2 years ago?
Yep.
Yeah. And last year was just under it, like really, really close. He has a great chemistry with Russell Wilson. They're fantastic on the deep ball connection. They're great when working like the back line of the end zone, as we've seen several times, including that ridiculous rollout throw across his body. Just
talking about the one against the Rams on Thursday Night Football?
At home. At home
the
against
back
the Rams.
left corner of the end zone. Best catch of the year by far.
By far. It was so dirty. That was the lock screen on my phone until I just, no, hold on. I'm sorry. It still is. The lock screen on my phone is Tyler Lockett toe drag swag in the back of the end zone on that ridiculous dime. Russell Wilson is a magician. Tyler Lockett knows how to make the most of it. DK Metcalf is there, and DK Metcalf is there to stay. These two wide receivers are both going to carve in a little bit to each other's upside, but they are both going to be very, very reliable assets for your team. If I can have Tyler Lockett as the wide receiver 2 on my team, and he's going to flirt with probably top 16 value on the season, I will smash that. And with the ascension of DK Metcalf, I think that Tyler Lockett owners are getting a little weary because there were a couple of weeks towards the end of the season where Lockett's performance really dipped hard and he kind of went away. I think that was a little bit fluky. I don't think that DK Metcalf is going to outshine him by a ton. I do think that DK Metcalf is going to be the wide receiver 1 on that team by the end of the season. I do think that happens. But I think that Tyler Lockett has a very safe floor with his chemistry with Russell Wilson, with their ability on scramble drills, with their insane connection and passer rating when targeted by him. The dude doesn't drop passes at all. He's incredible. He's going to be a very, very safe wide receiver 2 for your fantasy. And he's still only 26 years old. I think he'll be 27 before the season starts. So he's not old by any means. He's going to be around for a while. So he's someone that is going to help you win this year and someone that you can keep on your roster for the next 3 to 4 seasons after that.
I love it. I'm all in on Tyler Lockett this year. There's a handful that I know off the top of my head that I'm going to be higher than the fantasy consensus industry on. One of those guys is Tyler Lockett. I mean, the chemistry between he and Russ is unreal. I would say it's up there with like the likes of Devonta Adams and Aaron Rodgers. Like it's so good on the scramble plays when Russ is getting loose. Tyler Lockett just knows how to find those holes in the defense, and it works perfectly every single time. I think DK is going to continue to rise, but I would not be shocked if by the end of the year, Tyler Lockett still leads the team in fantasy points, especially at the wide receiver position. And we're going to probably talk about this too much this season, and it's unfortunate, but with what's going on in our society and our country, in fantasy football this year, I'm going to target consistency and reliability and offenses that don't have a lot of change happening in them. This Seahawks team doesn't have a lot changing on the offensive side of the ball. And let's not forget, all these running backs coming off of injury, you could see more pass attempts from Russ this year. And obviously that means good things for the pass catchers. So yeah, man, I'm totally in on Tyler Lockett in redraft and in Dynasty. Like you said, no one's talking about this dude. Everyone's all excited about DK Metcalf, thanks to John, because he's been hyping him up. Hey, he's here to tell you, don't forget about Tyler Lockett. So I love it, man. I'm definitely in on that.
Now, can you get him for a second, or is it going to be a late first? Because I don't think you can get him for a second.
I don't think you can either. I think you can get him for an early second, maybe.
Yeah.
But a late first, probably.
Yeah. All right.
I would do it. I would definitely do it.
Yeah. That, like him or the wide receivers going in the end of the first round. If I want to win now, it's not even a question. I want Tyler Lockett. And if I'm a team that's rebuilding, it's very little question that I want Brandon Ayuk or T. Higgins or pick your guy. So that's a trade that could work and should work, and you should do it if you're a contender. I like it.
Yep. Yes, sir. All right, Okada, we're back to you, man. Who is your second contender buy for this episode?
All right, Bets. We are apparently obsessed with this team now all of a sudden because I feel like both of us have talked about it in each of the last 2 episodes, and not on purpose, but it's just the way things are going. Here's the thing, guys. I'm going to pick and target a running back who has scored in the last 3 seasons, not in his career, in the last 3 seasons, 42 rushing touchdowns and 12 receiving touchdowns, by the way, 54 scrimmage touchdowns. I'm sure you can probably guess who it is because only one guy in the NFL is doing that, and it's Todd Gurley. Listen, last year we knew it going into the season. Oh boy, what can we expect from Todd Gurley after that playoff run? Are they going to give him no touches? And to a degree, they kind of did, and he was disappointing to what he had been previously. I don't know if he's really disappointing to what we kind of thought he was going to be because we kind of expected this. Even in spite of all of that, he scored 14 touchdowns, guys. 12 rushing, 2 receiving. 14 touchdowns.
I feel like no one knows that.
No! It's like
no one knows that he scored 14.
I think it is the third most unknown stat. The first being Deontay Johnson led all rookie wide receivers. The second being Kenny Golladay led all receivers with, I think, 9 touchdowns. Which was
no, it was way more than that.
11?
Yeah, it was double digit.
Are you sure? Check it. In any
think
case, it was Kenny Golladay who led the league. Third, Todd Gurley still scored 14 touchdowns despite the implosion of the Rams offense, the horrific decline of the Rams offensive line that went from best in the league in 2018 to legitimately bottom 2 in the league in 2019. And he still was a top 24 running back by a lot. In fact, he was RB14, so he almost cracked RB1 territory on the season. And that was with a beginning of the season that was still coming off of that injury. And what I just talked about with the Rams offense and offensive line declining massively. Now he's going to a Falcons offense that I think will be as good or better than certainly the Rams offense last year, as good as it was over the couple years before that, which means Gurley slides into a potentially similar role. This is an offense where we've seen tons of running back production over the last 4 or 5 years, back when they had Shanahan, and still now when it was Devontae Freeman when he was healthy. Last year was a bit of a mess for all their running backs, but when they've had healthy running backs, those guys have produced as a core. The core is now Todd Gurley, and that's it.
Yeah.
So he's going to get those touches. They signed him to a 1-year deal to give him those touches. They did not sign him to a 1-year deal to be a 200-touch running back who they have to baby because he's got a broken knee. All right? He's going to come out here and get 275, 300 touches. He is going to score double-digit touchdowns. Lock it in. You give me one player in the entire league to choose to score double-digit touchdowns, I'm choosing Todd Gurley on the Falcons. No question. And that is going to be enough to give you top 15 running back production. And he is getting 0 dynasty love. In startups, he's going in like the 7th, 8th round. He's like in the mid to high 20s among running backs. And that's fine. It's okay and understandable to a degree because if you're in a dynasty startup, a lot of people are thinking for 3 to 4 years down the line. But if you're a contender who's just trying to trade to win now, and you're going for a guy who you want 1 or 2 years out of, Todd Gurley is a top 15 running back. To me, that feels like a smash. I think he can be a top 15 running back for a couple more years even. But this next year, he's going to be a top 15 running back, potentially an RB1. And I think you can get him for pennies on the dollar. A huge drop-off. You talked about Kamara's drop-off, John. Gurley's drop-off is like triple that. Yeah. So go out and get you some Gurley.
Get you some Gurley. Get you a Gurley.
Get you a Gurley.
I like it.
That is cute. I like this a lot. Now, for me, if I'm in win now mode and I need him this season and I'm willing to go all in, yes, I'm willing to take on the risk for his health concerns and contract. I'm willing to do that. And I would only do this if I thought that I had a real shot at winning the championship. I wouldn't mortgage my future if I didn't think that I was close. I'm talking about Todd Gurley should be like the 4th running back on your team, and you have 4 of the top like 15 in the NFL. Like that's the kind of roster I need to have. I need to have 4 of the top 15 wide receivers, and he's like my 2nd or 3rd running back at that point. But you need to have a stacked roster to go out and make this happen because they are going to run him into the ground, like what Okada just said. 275, 300 touches absolutely could happen unless the wheels fall off in week 10 because it's possible that that happens. They held Gurley back so hard for the first like month to 6 weeks of the season last year where he was getting like 12 touches a game, 14 touches a game, something like that, before deciding, okay, you know what, let's just turn him loose and let him happen. And then he still scored a bunch of touchdowns. The upside is absolutely there for Todd Gurley to flirt with running back 1 production. The fact that they did not commit to him long-term, that he's on a 1-year contract, and they are going to run him into the absolute ground concerns me, because I don't want to pay a ton for a running back that I think there is a decent chance completely falls apart close to the end of the season as you're making a championship run. If I'm making a real championship run, I will take that risk and I'll see if it happens or not. But I need to have other running back depth in order to make that happen. And if I'm not in contention, I'm not touching Todd Gurley.
This is a completely range of outcomes assessment to talk about Todd Gurley, because like Okada's saying, and like John's saying, and I agree, he's going to have the first, second, third, and fourth opportunity to be the running back on this team. Ito Smith, Quadra Allison.
He already is. No, he's walking in
Brian
to
Hill,
a starting gig.
Yes, exactly. The contract says, you know what? It's 1 year. Let's run him into the ground. So I agree with everything you guys are saying. But that is the concern with Todd Gurley's knee, right? Like there's some injuries where it's an all or none thing, where it's like, you know what? He's over it. We're good. With Todd Gurley, this is a management issue. And so if they say, all right, Todd, here you go. Here's 20 carries per game. In October, it's going to look awesome. In December, it might look horrible for your roster because of how that could just kind of flare up on him. So we just don't know. And it's so hard to predict. So for me, this is all about what the price is to get Todd Gurley. If it's manageable and you can take on the risk, do it. He's going to touch the ball a ton. It's a good offense. But if you're like, man, I'm going to buy him this year and hopefully he gets through it and next year is the year for Todd Gurley, no. Don't do that. Do not buy him in that scenario. But if you're a contender, if you're a top 2 or 3 team, and you just need one more piece to get you over the edge, then I like it. But it's all about price for me with Todd Gurley. So he's going to be like probably the most polarizing player, I think, in fantasy this year. I don't know what you guys thoughts on about that.
So
well, him and David Johnson both.
Yeah. What is the price?
The price? Yeah. We got to talk about the price then. The listeners got to know what should they pay.
Oh man, but the thing is, like, if you're going to try to trade for him, like, I wouldn't give more than an early second for him.
I think you can get him for that easily, based off his startup. Off his startup value, yes.
I don't know.
I don't think so, man. Todd Gurley carries too much name value.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, if you can get him for a second,
in a I feel like in a dynasty league, name value has less value, and I think that people know this is a guy who's climbing into his mid to late 20s, but playing like or body of climbing into his 30s and has a 1-year deal. People know that in Dynasty. I think you can get him for an early second.
I think that's the attempt. Like that's the offer you go to the owner with and say, here's the second. What do you think about Todd Gurley? It's time to move on. If they're asking for a first, I think I'm out. Especially this year, if you're a team who's looking to rebuild and you happen to have Gurley left, and you're rebuilding because Gurley tied on your team, if I'm the rebuilding owner, I'm doing that in a heartbeat. All right, maybe listeners, go check it out. See what you can do. Yeah. I don't know if that gets it done, but we'll see.
And get back to us, please. All right, if you pull off the Todd Gurley trade, I want to hear it. I want to. This sounds like a poll. What happened? It sounds like okay. I'll put out a poll. What would you pay for Todd Gurley in Dynasty? So mid first, late first, early second, mid second. Give those range of outcomes. He's extremely interesting this year for fantasy. And we just have an article going up on the site today from Kai talking about the range of outcomes for Todd Gurley, seeing if he can make the leap into RB1 territory again this year. So check that out. All right, guys, last player to close off the show. I don't even know what else there is to say, except for I just want to read off the fantasy finish for this player in every single season over the past 5 years. Starting last year, this is half PPR. Wide receiver 4, wide receiver 7, wide receiver 5. Oh, a down year, wide receiver 8. Then the wide receiver 1 in fantasy. I'm talking about Julio freaking Jones.
Julio touchdown Jones.
Julio wide receiver 1.
Not touchdown Jones. But it doesn't matter because clearly he's always a top 8 fantasy receiver and most times top 5. Listen, we just talked about Todd Gurley, and I agree with everything Okada's saying. If he stays healthy, it's going to be awesome. But if he doesn't, Matt Ryan is going to lead the NFL in pass attempts. I firmly believe that. This defense is not good. This offensive line is middling of the road here. But are you telling me Ito Smith's going to be the dude, or you're going to give Quadra Allison the ball to the backfield? No, you're going to let Matt Ryan chuck it, and it's going to be Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley all day long. I'm going to rank Julio aggressively in redraft. I'm going out and getting him in all my dynasty rosters that I'm a contender because everyone looks at that age. They say, I don't know, like 31. This could be his last good year. Julio Jones just keeps doing it year after year after year. Go get this dude and win a fantasy football championship. Julio Jones is going to return a ton of value this year, even in Dynasty. We were just talking with John before the show started.
Yeah.
Shocker. He's in a startup and he
something new and different.
Yeah. He went in the 4th round of a Dynasty startup.
4.03. I got Julio Jones.
Take the risk. Take him there. You'll have him for 2 years and he'll still be a top 10 option. So I'm in on Julio this year. And obviously for good reason, go out and get that guy.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I'm going to bounce off you, Bets, and say that I actually even like Julio maybe more, certainly as much, if Gurley is what I talked about him being, because Matt Ryan was among the top quarterbacks in the league in attempts last year, and he led the league in completions. But they had no running game to speak of, and that does not help. So if Gurley is out there establishing a great running game, creating a threat of a balanced offense, even if Matt Ryan drops down to 570 pass attempts instead of 610 or whatever he was last year,
drops down to 570.
Exactly.
Yeah, come on.
Those attempts and those completions and where they are on the field and how often they get in the red zone, all is going to go up. All that's good for Julio. I like it just as much if Gurley's good and healthy and producing. This is the easiest smash on the entire board because you are guaranteed to get a wide receiver 1 and take you to the fantasy championship with Julio Jones.
And the great thing is you're getting him as a wide receiver 2 in startups, which is what I've done twice, I think, this offseason now. I have Devontae Adams and Julio Jones on one roster in a startup, and I'm just laughing all the way to the bank. It's so easy to take Julio. He's fantastic. I don't get the people that are sleeping on him. He's under contract for 4 more seasons and carries a lot of cap, like 11 mil per year in dead cap over those years. He's not going anywhere. Julio's going to be around, and he has proven it year after year after year, like what Betts was saying. He is a top-tier wide receiver 1 until he's not. You just treat him as such. I don't care how old he is. He's a physical specimen. He leaps with the best of them. Contested catches are just highlight reel material. Just give me that. Takes it away. Sorry, you did it to your secondary a couple times. I've got it. But
it's okay. We still won the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah. Nice. But he's just so good. I don't understand why people are sleeping on him just because of the age and number. He's not declining at all. He's still looking fantastic. He's still got his quarterback. He's in the same situation he's been in for years. He knows that offense like the back of his hand. He knows that quarterback deeply, like they're on the same page on every throw. He's ridiculous. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. He's probably one of the 10 best talented wide receivers in NFL history. He's absolutely absurd. He should be on your roster. Go get him.
Yes, sir. We will close out the show on that note. Go make some dynasty trades. Go win a championship, boys. It's time, man. I'm excited. I'm going to go make some trades as soon as we end the show here. If you like what you're hearing, please drop a rating and review in your podcast app. Not only because it would help us out a lot, but also that is a way to enter the Devontae Adams signed jersey contest. So check that out. Check out patreon.com/redshirtspod. Get in that Slack channel. Let's talk. Let's talk fantasy football. Let's talk dynasty trades. Let's talk about whatever. What Okada's having for lunch. What John's going to do this evening. We can talk about anything you guys want. Hit us up in Slack. We are back on Saturday for the second show this week. And fellas, we're doing a mock draft, a redraft mock draft on that show. So you guys are going to want to tune in for that. Oh, fellas, anything else for the people before we get out of here?
No.
Don't overvalue rookies in your startup drafts.
Perfect. Words of wisdom from John.
Nugget.
That's a nice little way to close out the show. We should put some music to that, like
little nugget,
like little dynasty.
The more you know, music.
Yeah,
the more you know.
All right, we are officially off the rails. So we're gonna close it out. Until next time, we are the Red Shirts.